Once upon a time, in a quiet little village surrounded by green hills and golden fields, lived two brothers who were very different from each other. The elder brother was rich, proud, and always busy counting his coins. He had a big house, fine clothes, and many servants who worked for him day and night. The younger brother was poor, kind, and humble. He lived in a small cottage at the edge of the village with his wife and two little children. Even though he had very little, he was always thankful for whatever life gave him. He believed that happiness didn't come from gold or silver, but from love, kindness, and peace of heart. Every morning, the poor brother went into the forest to cut wood and sell it in the market. It was hard work, especially under the hot sun, but he never complained. His wife waited for him at home, cooking simple meals and praying for his safety. The rich brother, on the other hand, spent his days enjoying luxuries. He rarely spoke to his younger brother and often looked down on him. Whenever the poor brother visited, the rich one mocked him, saying, "Why work so hard for so little? You'll never become rich chopping wood all your life." The poor brother would simply smile and reply, "I may not be rich in gold, I am rich in peace." The one year, the village suffered a terrible drought. The rivers dried up, crops withered, and food became scarce. Poor brother and his family struggled to survive. There were days when they had nothing but a few grains of rice to eat. Still, he didn't lose hope. He trusted that hard work and kindness would see them through the dark days. One evening, as he was walking home through the forest, a faint voice calling out. It was an old man sitting under a tree, weak and hungry. The poor brother ran to him and asked, "Are you all right?" The old man whispered, "I haven't eaten in days. Could you spare me a little food?" The poor brother opened his small bundle and took out the only piece of bread he had left for dinner, didn't think twice. He gave it to the old man with a smile. The old man looked at him with teary eyes and said, "You have given me life tonight. My son, may your kindness return to you in ways you cannot imagine." The poor brother helped the man to a nearby hut and made sure he was safe before returning home, hungry but happy. The next morning, when he stepped outside his cottage, he saw something shining near his doorstep. It was a golden coin, bright and new. Up, surprised and confused. Where did this come from? He wondered. He showed it to his wife, who was equally astonished. They decided not to waste it but to use it wisely. The poor brother bought some seeds and planted them in the dry soil, praying for rain. A few days later, clouds gathered, and rain finally poured down over the land. The seeds sprouted, and soon his field was full of green crops. Months passed, and the poor brother's small farm turned into a beautiful garden of fruits and grains. He shared his harvest with his neighbors and the poor people of the village. Everyone loved him for his generosity. The story of his good fortune spread throughout the village until it reached the ears of his rich brother. Curious and jealous, the rich brother went to visit him after many years. He was shocked to see the small cottage, surrounded by healthy crops and smiling faces. "How did you become so wealthy?" he asked. The poor brother simply smiled and said, "I helped an old man one night, and from that day, blessings started to follow me." The rich brother frowned. "An old man gave you this? Then I'll find him too," he declared. The poor brother tried to stop him, saying, "Brother, what I did came from the heart, not from greed. You cannot force blessings." But the rich brother didn't listen. He packed some food, went into the forest, for days until he found the same old man resting under a tree. The rich brother pretended to be kind and said, "Old man, you look hungry. Here." But deep inside he only wanted gold. The old man looked at him and said, "Your hands give, but your heart is empty. You seek reward, not kindness." The old man thanked him anyway and gave him a small, ordinary-looking stone. "Take this," he said, "and it will bring you what you truly deserve." The rich brother took the stone eagerly, thinking it would turn into gold. But when he returned home, he found his house filled with nothing but sand. The more he tried to gather the sand, the more it spread. He shouted in anger and threw the stone away, realizing that greed had blinded him. Days later, he went back to his younger brother, humbled and ashamed. "Brother," he said softly, "I see now that true wealth isn't gold or silver. It's peace, kindness, and love." The poor brother hugged him and said, "It's never too late to change, my brother. When we give with love, we receive blessings that last forever." From that day onward, the two brothers lived in harmony. The rich one shared his wealth with others, and the poor one continued to help the needy. The village soon prospered again, not because of riches, but because of unity and kindness. Years later, when the poor brother grew old, he would sit under the same tree where he once met the old man and tell the story to the village children. He would say, "Remember, children, no act of kindness ever goes unnoticed. Even when no one is watching, life is watching. The good you do always finds its way back to you." The children listened with shining eyes, inspired to be kind and generous. The poor brother eventually became known across the land as the Ken farmer. Travelers passing through the village would stop by his house to hear his story and take blessings from him, considered himself rich, even when he had everything he needed. For him, the greatest treasure was the peace in his heart and the smiles of those he helped. And as time went by, the lesson of his life spread from one generation to the next. People learned that wealth gained from greed fades quickly, but wealth born from kindness lasts forever. The old man in the forest was never seen again, but many believed he was an angel in disguise, sent to test the hearts of men. The story of the two brothers reminds us that what truly matters in life is not how much we have, but how much we give. The poor brother became rich, not through gold or luck, but through the goodness of his heart. That is the richest kind of wealth anyone can ever have. Many generations passed, but the story of the poor brother lived on like a sacred song whispered by the wind. The village he once called home became known across distant lands as the Golden Heart Village. People who visited said there was something different in the air. A feeling of peace, kindness, and honesty that touched every soul who entered. The golden plant still bloomed at the center of the fields. No one knew exactly how old it was. Its glow never faded. It was said that as long as people in the village remained kind and generous, the plant would continue to shine. One day, a young boy named Aaron, who was born in that very village, sat near the golden plant, to his grandfather tell stories. The old man's voice was slow but full of warmth. "Long ago," he began, "there lived a poor man who gave away his last piece of bread. He thought he lost everything, but in truth, that was the day he became the richest man in the world." Aaron listened with wide eyes, his heart filling with wonder. "Grandfather," he asked, "do you think I can be like him someday?" The old man smiled gently. "You already can, my boy. All it takes is a kind heart." Those words stayed with Aaron as he grew up. He often visited the golden plant, sitting beneath its glow whenever he felt confused or sad. The village was happy, but times were changing. new merchants came from faraway cities, bringing not only goods but also greed. Some villagers began to dream of wealth and power. They started to forget the lessons of the poor brother. Kindness alone could not fill their stomachs. Slowly, the unity that once bound them began to fade. Aaron noticed this change and felt worried. Your full attention, he remembered his grandfather's stories and knew that if people forgot the true meaning of kindness, the magic of the golden plant would vanish. One evening, he gathered the children of the village around the glowing plant and told them the full story of the poor brother. He spoke with passion, his voice rising and falling like the rhythm of the wind. The children listened in silence, their eyes reflecting the golden light. Never forget, Aaron said, that it was kindness that built this village. If we lose that, we lose everything. His words spread throughout the village like a spark. The elders smiled with pride, remembering the old days, while some of the younger ones felt shame for their greed. The next morning, something strange happened. The golden plant began to dim, glow grew weaker, and the villagers gathered in fear. "What's happening?" they cried. The oldest elder said softly, "Perhaps our hearts have grown heavy with greed." Everyone fell silent. Aaron stepped forward and said, "If kindness brought the light, kindness must bring it back." He began collecting food, clothes, and whatever little money he had. He invited others to join him in helping those who had lost their way. Together, they went from house to house, not asking for gold, but for hearts willing to share. Slowly, people began to remember what the poor brother had taught long ago. They started helping one another again, rebuilding what had been lost, not in buildings or wealth, but in trust and compassion. A few weeks later, the golden plant began to glow once more. Its light returned stronger than ever before, brighter than the stars in the sky. The villagers cheered, and tears of joy rolled down their faces. Aaron stood in front of the plant, feeling its warmth touch his heart. That night, dreamed of an old man dressed in simple clothes standing in the golden field. The man smiled kindly and said, "You have done well, my child. Kindness never dies. It simply waits to be remembered." When Aaron woke up, he knew the spirit of the poor brother was still watching over the village. Years passed, and the story spread beyond the valley. Travelers who came to the village took the lesson with them, sharing it in distant lands. Soon, other villages began to change too. People built wells, schools, and shelters inspired by the story of the poor brother. Some said that wherever his story was told with love, a small golden flower bloomed nearby. A reminder that kindness was alive there. The world slowly began to heal from greed, one act of goodness at a time. But there were still some who doubted. In a faraway kingdom, a proud and powerful king heard of the Golden Heart village. He laughed and said, "How can kindness make people rich? Gold and armies make kingdoms strong, not love and compassion." Yet his heart was restless, and curiosity drew him to visit the village himself. Disguised as a traveler, he rode through mountains and forests until he reached the peaceful valley. When he entered the village, gentle warmth of the golden plant touched him deeply. For the first time in years, he felt calm. The king met Aaron, who had grown into a wise young man, asked him, "What makes this village so happy? Is it magic?" Aaron smiled and said, "No, your majesty, kindness. The kind that asks for nothing in return." The king frowned, "But kindness cannot feed armies or build palaces." Aaron replied softly, "True, it can feed souls and build peace, and peace lasts longer than palaces." The king stayed for several days, observing the villagers. He saw people sharing meals, helping the old and the sick, and treating each other with respect. He noticed that even though they were not rich in gold, they were rich in joy. When he finally revealed his true identity, the villagers treated him no differently. They bowed politely but continued to offer him food and friendship just as they did before. The king was humbled by their simplicity. Before leaving, he stood before the golden plant and whispered, "Perhaps this is what true power looks like." When the king returned to his kingdom, began to rule differently. He opened his palace to the poor, built hospitals for the sick, and schools for children. People were astonished by the change, asked what caused it. He said, "I learned from a poor man who became rich, not by gold, but by goodness." Many more years passed. Aaron grew old, and before he died, he planted new seeds from the golden plant across the valley. "Let them grow wherever hearts remain pure," he said. The villagers continued his work, and soon golden flowers began to bloom in nearby lands too. The light of kindness spread far beyond the mountains, touching countless lives. Centuries later, the story of the poor brother was still told, not from books or scrolls, but from heart to heart. Your full attention. Children learned it from their parents, travelers shared it across deserts and seas, and poets turned it into songs that echoed through generations. The golden plant, though old, still stood tall in the heart of the village, glowing softly beneath the moonlight, as if whispering, "Never ends." And so, what began as one man's simple act of compassion, a piece of bread given to a hungry stranger, grew into a legend that changed the world, taught people that real wealth comes not from what we gather, but from what we give. Love multiplies when shared, peace grows when practiced, and kindness lives forever when it comes from the heart. In the end, the poor brother's legacy was not written in stone or gold, but in the hearts of people who believed in goodness. His spirit lived in every act of kindness, every helping hand, every smile given without reason. For as long as there are those who choose love over greed, his story will never fade. And somewhere, beyond the golden fields and gentle winds, the poor brother smiles, knowing that his one small act of kindness changed the world forever. Many years turned into centuries. Golden Heart Village became more than a place. It became a symbol. Travelers from every corner of the world came to see the golden plant that still glowed softly in the valley. Time had aged its leaves, yet it never withered. It was said that when people stood near it with pure hearts, they could feel the warmth of kindness flowing through their souls, as if the spirit of the poor brother still lingered there, blessing all who believed in goodness. The heart of this golden village lived a young girl named Lyra. She was bright, curious, and full of dreams. Her grandmother often told her stories about the poor brother and his golden plant. Every night before bed, Lyra would whisper, "Someday, I will make the world kind again." Her grandmother would smile and say, "Then you will carry his light forward, my child." As Lyra grew, she saw the world around her begin to change again. The once simple village had become a small town. Merchants built shops, began trading goods with other lands, and slowly, the desire for wealth crept back into hearts. The golden plant still glowed, but its light had grown faint. Many people had stopped visiting it, thinking it was just an old legend, not realizing that its light depended on their kindness. One morning, as Lyra walked through the town square, she saw two children fighting over a loaf of bread. She stepped between them and said, "Stop. There's enough for both." But one of the children shouted, "Kindness won't fill our bellies," and ran away. Lyra stood there in silence, realizing how deeply people had forgotten the lessons of their ancestors. That night, she visited the golden plant and sat beside it. "Why are they forgetting?" she whispered. "Why is your light fading?" A gentle wind brushed her cheek, and for a moment she thought she heard a voice, calm and warm, say, "Remind them." The next morning, she decided to act. Lyra went from door to door, asking the villagers to gather in the old field where the poor brother once lived. Some ignored her, some laughed, but a few agreed to come. When evening fell, Lyra stood in front of the crowd with a small lamp in her hand. "This lamp," she said softly, "like the golden plant. It shines only when it's protected from darkness. But if we turn our hearts cold, its light fades away." The people listened quietly as she retold the story of the poor brother. How he gave his last piece of bread, how his kindness changed a whole world, and how the golden plant was a symbol of that love. Something stirred in their hearts. The oldest villagers had heard the story as children, wiped tears from their eyes. Slowly, the crowd began to join hands, and together, they walked toward the golden plant. They placed their lamps around it, and as their hearts softened, the golden glow returned, brighter and stronger than before. For the first time in years, the entire valley shone with golden light that reached the mountains and reflected off the rivers like sunlight reborn. That night, everyone in the village felt peace. People began sharing food again, visiting the sick, helping the poor, and rebuilding trust. The next morning, Lyra found something new growing beside the golden plant. A small sprout with silver leaves. It shimmered softly in the sunlight. When she touched it, she felt warmth and joy spreading through her hands. She ran to her grandmother, who looked at the sprout and said, "It's the second blessing. The first plant was born from kindness, this one from remembrance. When people remember goodness, new hope is born." The silver plant grew fast and soon spread through the soil, touching every part of the valley. Wherever its roots reached, the land became fertile, the water sweeter, air calmer. The world began to heal again, one heart at a time. Lyra realized that her small act of reminding people had brought the village back to life. She decided to write the story of the poor brother and send it to faraway places. With the help of merchants and travelers, her words traveled across kingdoms and seas. In time, people in distant cities began planting seeds in his name. They called them seeds of kindness. Those who planted them were asked to perform one selfless act before the plant bloomed. To everyone's amazement, plant grew differently. Some with golden petals, some silver, and some with simple white flowers. But all glowed faintly in the dark, as if carrying the same light from the Golden Heart village. Decades passed, and Lyra became an old woman. She would often sit beneath the golden and silver plants, surrounded by children eager to hear her stories. "Do you know," she would say, "that the poor brother's kindness is still alive in every one of you? Every time you share, forgive, or help someone in need, you water the roots of these plants." The children would nod eagerly, their eyes full of hope. Before Lyra passed away, she made a small wooden box, just like the one the traveler had once left for the poor brother. Inside it she placed a handful of golden and silver seeds. On the lid, she carved these words, "Kindness is the seed, remembrance is the water, and love is the sun. Together, they make the world bloom." The villagers buried the box beside the golden plant and promised to keep her memory alive. As centuries continued to turn, stories spread beyond kingdoms, beyond borders, and beyond languages. In every culture, told their own version of the tale. sometimes about a poor brother, sometimes a kind sister, or even a humble farmer. But the message never changed. Kindness creates miracles. The legend grew so powerful that in times of great war or sorrow, people would gather to tell the story again, believing that it could bring peace. And it did. In one distant land, when soldiers refused to fight after hearing it, they planted golden flowers in the fields instead. In another, kings forgave old enemies, remembering the words, "Peace lasts longer than palaces." The world slowly began to glow again, not with gold or light, but with compassion. Many believed that whenever someone performed an act of pure kindness, a small unseen light appeared in the sky. Another spark of the poor brother's eternal flame. And though no one could prove it, everyone who believed felt comfort in their hearts. One quiet night, hundreds of years later, a child in a faraway city sat by the window and asked his mother, "Why do people say kindness never dies?" She smiled, brushed his hair gently, and said, "Because a long, long time ago, a poor man gave away his last piece of bread. And the world has been glowing ever since." The child smiled, closed his eyes, and dreamed of golden fields, shining plants, and people helping one another with love. And so the story lived on. Not in temples, not in books, but in every human heart that chose compassion over greed. The poor brother's journey, which began with one act of generosity, became an endless light guiding the world through centuries of darkness. It reminded everyone that even in the smallest village, from the simplest act, miracles are born. The golden and silver plants still stand together in the heart of the valley, swaying gently in the wind. Travelers who pass by say that if you listen closely, you can hear a voice in the breeze whispering, "Give, love." No one knows if it's real or just the wind. But those who believe always leave the valley with lighter hearts. And so, from a single moment of kindness, the light of love spread across the world, forever proving that one good heart can change everything. The poor brother, the rich brother, the old traveler, Aaron, and Lyra, all became threads of one great story that time could never erase. The story of a man who gave everything he had, and in return, received the world's most priceless treasure. The power to make hearts glow.